Have you ever stopped to think that things are happening to you without your eyes being able to see? As you go about your life, there are people who harbor envy, hurt, hatred, and even a desire to see you fall. There's a real spiritual world where plots are hatched against your life, your family, and even your dreams. And perhaps you've experienced this firsthand. Doors that close without explanation, friendships that turn against you, situations that seem more than just coincidence. It's not paranoia, it's a spiritual battle. And the truth is, you can't win alone. But God has already left you a powerful weapon. Prayer united with the Word. Psalm 35 is a key that unlocks paths of protection, undoes traps, and silences every tongue that rises against you. It's not just a beautiful text from the Bible, it's a prayer of war, a cry that puts God Himself at the forefront of your struggle. When you pray this psalm with faith, you're calling on the Lord to fight for your cause, to expose and defeat everything that's been plotted in the shadows. And that's exactly what you'll discover in this video, how to use this prayer as a shield that protects your life against all envy, persecution, and the enemy's schemes. Get ready, because today you'll understand that you don't need to live in fear. There is a way out, there is protection, and you'll learn how to access it in a practical way. So stay with me until the end, because I'll show you how this prayer can change the atmosphere of your life and take you to a new level of victory. Have you ever noticed that many people pray but see no results? It's as if it were just a repetition of words thrown to the wind, powerless, directionless, and ineffective. And do you know why? Because there's a huge difference between praying only with your mouth and praying with the Word of God. When you unite your prayer with what's written in the Bible, something completely different happens. You don't just speak for yourself, you speak with the backing of God Himself. And this is precisely where one of the greatest secrets lies, one that almost no one applies, but which makes all the difference. When you pray using Psalm 35, you're not inventing fancy phrases. You're declaring God's own will, bringing into reality promises that are already released for your life. Stop for a moment and think with me. Who can stand against the Word of God? No one. When you speak your opinion, someone might question it. When you speak of your pain, someone might ignore it. But when you speak what God has already said, there is no argument against it. It's as if you were bringing heaven to earth, drawing on the authority of the Lord Himself to act in your story. This is why so many people get stuck, because they pray asking but not declaring the word. The power is not just in saying, "Lord, help me," but in saying, "Lord, your word says you will fight for me, and I believe it now." Do you see the difference? I'll be blunt. Without the word, prayer can become fragile, but when you combine the two, the spiritual world responds. It's as if you're building an invisible wall around yourself, a barrier that keeps envy from entering, that blocks curses, that cuts off arrows launched against your life. It's not an exaggeration, it's reality, and perhaps you've experienced this yourself without realizing it. You know that moment when it seemed like everything was going to go wrong, but suddenly something changed, someone intervened, a door opened, or a danger was averted without explanation. This is the word working alongside prayer. Now let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever tried praying Psalm 35 out loud, declaring each word as if it were a truth about your life? If you have, you know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't, that's where the opportunity lies. In fact, I want you to comment on the word protection here in the comments, because this will be like an act of faith, a seal that you understand what I'm talking about, and that from today on you will start to pray differently with much more authority. But be careful, because here's a point that needs to be made clear. Prayer with the Word is not a magic charm. It's not an automatic formula. It requires faith, commitment, and constancy. There's no point in praying just once and expecting everything to work out. What moves God's power is your posture, your decision to remain steadfast, even when circumstances seem contrary. This is why so many people give up halfway. They want quick results, but they're not willing to stick with it. Prayer with the Word is like a key you need to turn every day, because each time you turn it, you're releasing God's presence into your life, until, suddenly, the impossible happens. And I know you might be tired of hearing that you need to have faith, that you need to pray, that you need to persist, but let me tell you, this weariness is precisely proof that the enemy doesn't want you to discover the real power of prayer. He knows that if you learn to use the Word, you become dangerous, A believer who prays is strong, but a believer who prays with the word is unbeatable. And that's precisely what Psalm 35 teaches you, to transform your cries into spiritual weapons that disarm any plan against your life. Have you ever stopped to think that many situations you consider bad luck or coincidence could actually be spiritual attacks? People who rise up against you out of nowhere, businesses that collapse without explanation, illnesses that appear for no reason, relationships that fall apart in strange ways. Well, none of this is by chance. And that's where the power of prayer with the word comes in. It reveals what's hidden and cuts off, at the root, everything planned against you. When you pray Psalm 35, you are literally calling God to fight your battle, and there is no enemy that can resist when the Lord enters the scene. And here, I want you to do a mental exercise with me. If you could choose today between facing your problems alone or having God Himself fight for you, which would you choose? It seems obvious, doesn't it? But in practice, many people continue to try to fight with their own strength, without using the weapon already given to them. Prayer with the word is this invitation God is extending to you to stop wearing yourself out and let Him take the lead. Now hold on to that detail, because I'm going to delve even deeper into this. There's a secret in Psalm 35 that goes beyond simply asking for protection. It shows a posture, a way of praying that activates God's power in a practical and constant way, and that's exactly what we'll talk about in the next section. What you've just received here is more than an explanation. It's a real key to changing your spiritual life and breaking through the attacks that have been holding you back for so long. This kind of knowledge isn't for everyone. It transforms those who have the courage to apply it. Now, the way to multiply this transformation is simple. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Just as this word reached you, it can also reach others who desperately need this protection. Show gratitude and share this powerful weapon with more lives, because what God started here is only the beginning. Perhaps one of the hardest things in life is dealing with injustice. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? Have you been misunderstood, misspoken about, or even persecuted for no reason? It's a suffocating feeling because you look around and find no defense. It's as if you're fighting alone against an invisible wall that insists on crushing you. And the worst part is that often these injustices don't come from strangers, but from people close to you, people you trusted, who walked with you, who ate at your table, and suddenly became the first to rise up against you. Psalm 35 portrays this very feeling. It's the cry of someone who can no longer bear the weight of false accusations, envious looks, and unjustified persecution alone. And that's why this psalm is so powerful, because it translates the pain of those who are being wronged and transforms that pain into prayer. Look, one thing I've learned is that injustice hurts more than the loss of something material. You can even recover from a financial loss, a possession, a job, but when someone tries to destroy your reputation or tarnish your name, the scar remains deep within your soul, and the enemy loves to use this as a weapon, knowing that emotional pain destabilizes. But God already knew this, which is why He recorded this cry in Psalm 35. It's as if He's saying, I know what you're going through, and here's the right prayer to put this fight in my hands. This is a relief because it shows that you don't need to waste your energy fighting with people, trying to prove who you are. You just need to hand the case over to the one who truly has the power to judge fairly. Now tell the truth. How many times have you defended yourself against accusations that never should have been made? How many times have you lost sleep, wondering how to explain something that, in fact, didn't even need explaining? And then you discover that the more you try to justify yourself, the more people twist your words and use them against you. It's like quicksand. The more you fight with your own hands, the deeper you sink. And here's the key. When you pray based on Psalm 35, you stop wasting energy trying to explain yourself to others and start surrendering everything to God. He is the one who will expose the truth, who will open the eyes of those who need to see, and who will silence the voices that have risen without reason. And let me break the ice here, because I know some people might be thinking, but I've prayed so much and nothing has changed. I understand, and that's precisely where the difference between praying haphazardly and praying the right way comes in. Psalm 35 isn't a complaint thrown into the air. It's a strategic prayer, a direct cry for God to arise as judge and warrior. You're not just venting, you're calling on the Lord to enter the battlefield in your place. This changes everything. And I want to challenge you now. Write the word here in the comments, justice, because that will be your declaration of faith that you believe that God is still the judge of your case. And there's another thing. When you start praying like this, you notice a transformation taking place within you. First, because you feel peace. The weight of injustice doesn't disappear overnight, but the way you face it changes completely. You stop being held hostage by the opinions of others and begin to live freely, knowing that God is the one who cares for your name. Second, because you begin to see concrete results. People who previously didn't see you begin to notice the difference. Situations that seemed blocked begin to unlock. Voices that once haunted you lose their power. This isn't theory, it's practice. Those who apply it see it happen. And it's not just about asking God to silence our enemies. It's about asking Him to reveal the truth. Because the biggest problem with injustice is lies. Lies are like a spreading poison. But the truth has the power to nip this poison in the bud. And Psalm 35 is precisely this request, that God reveal the truth, that He expose what is hidden, that He bring justice where men cannot or will not. Now think about it. What's more powerful? Spending energy trying to prove your worth to people who have already decided not to believe in you, or letting God Himself show everyone who you truly are? That's the key point. The prayer based on Psalm 35 takes you out of the position of a victim who needs to defend yourself and places you in the position of a child with a father who fights on your behalf. This brings rest to the soul, and that's why I say, every time you feel you're being unfairly attacked, pray this psalm out loud. Don't. Pray timidly. Pray with authority. Declare each word with conviction as if delivering the case to the supreme judge. You'll see how your mindset changes, how the spiritual environment transforms, and how doors begin to open. And here, I want to leave something in the air for you to think about. If Psalm 35 already shows this strength when you cry out for justice, what happens when you understand that this prayer also has the power to undo hidden plans that you don't even imagine are being prepared against you? One of the heaviest burdens many people carry without realizing it are the curses and hidden agendas at work in their lives. Perhaps you've even experienced this. Recurring patterns in your life, patterns of failure, relationships that always end the same way, doors that close without explanation. It feels like there's something invisible blocking your path, as if there's an opposing force trying to stop you from moving forward. And you know what? This isn't just an impression. There's a real spiritual world, and within it battles often unfold that you can't see. Psalm 35 shows us exactly how to deal with this, because it's not just a prayer for protection. It's a declaration of war against curses and hidden agendas the enemy has in store for you. It's very common for people to dismiss these problems as simple bad luck. Oh, I'm unlucky in love. I'm unlucky in business. Every time I'm about to take an important step, something goes wrong. But the truth is that the enemy likes to act in secret, because while you think it's just coincidence, he continues to operate unchallenged. This is where the power of the prayer of Psalm 35 comes in. It reveals what is hidden and undoes what has been set up against you. It's not magic, it's applied spirituality. You are bringing light to what was once in darkness. And here I want to make you think about something. How many times have you seen people with talent, intelligence, and goodwill, but who simply can't prosper? It seems like something is always holding them back. This is a sign of an opposing spiritual force, a curse that needs to be broken. And let me tell you, there is no curse so strong that prayer united with the Word of God cannot destroy. When you recite this psalm out loud, you are putting God first, and every plan that was hatched in the shadows begins to fall apart. I know this topic may seem heavy, but it's important to speak the truth. There are people who, driven by envy, even wish you harm. And the problem isn't just what they say to your face, but what they declare behind your back, secretly, in words or even in hateful thoughts. You may not even hear it, but in the spiritual world, this carries weight. But there's something even stronger. When you stand up in prayer, your voice gains the authority to silence all others. Psalm 35 says, "Contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me." This isn't a pretty phrase. It's a spiritual command. It's you enlisting God Himself to disarm every hidden plan that has been launched against your life. Let me put this more clearly. Imagine someone sets a trap in your path. You're walking distractedly, you don't notice, and when you step, you fall. This is what happens when you don't pray. You walk without protection. But when you pray Psalm 35, it's as if God goes before you, illuminating each step and destroying each trap before you even reach it. It's prevention. It's protection. It's spiritual warfare won before it begins. Now I want to break the ice with you. Many people think it's an exaggeration to talk about curses, but answer me honestly. Have you ever noticed strange patterns in your life or in your family's life? Illnesses that recur, addictions passed from generation to generation, cycles of destruction that seem never-ending. This is no coincidence. It's spiritual. And you know the good news? It can be broken. Prayer with the Word has this power. Psalm 35 is like a sword that cuts these invisible chains. I want you to do something now. Comment on the word break below. Write this word as a prophetic act, declaring that from today on, curses and hidden plans will begin to lose strength in your life. This isn't just a comment. It's you putting your faith into practice, showing that you're taking what you're hearing seriously. And here's a detail you need to understand. Sometimes prayer won't change the situation overnight, but it will. Begin to dismantle it piece by piece. It's like a house of cards. At first it seems solid, but all it takes is one move and everything crumbles. When you pray based on Psalm 35, you're hitting these strategic points, tearing down strongholds the enemy has built over time. And little by little you begin to see change. But let me leave you with a question that opens this understanding even further. If Psalm 35 has this power to undo curses and nullify hidden plans, what happens when you learn to use prayer not only as an act of defense, but as a constant, persevering practice, capable of completely transforming your spiritual life? One of the biggest mistakes people make in their spiritual life is believing that all it takes is praying once and everything will automatically be resolved. It's as if prayer were a magic button you press and presto, problem solved. But it doesn't work that way. Prayer is powerful, yes, but it requires perseverance. Jesus himself said we should pray without ceasing because he knew there's a time between the seed you plant and the fruit you reap. Psalm 35 teaches us precisely this. It's not just asking once and giving up. It's persisting before God until the answer comes. I know it can be frustrating because we all want quick solutions. You pray today and already expect everything to be different tomorrow, but the reality is that often spiritual battle requires constancy. It's like a war. You don't win with a single blow. You win by holding your ground, resisting until the enemy retreats. Persevering in prayer means never tiring of bending your knees, even when it seems like nothing is happening. And here's the secret. Even when you don't see it, in the spiritual world, something is moving. Think about it. How many times have you given up too soon? How many blessings may you have missed simply because you stopped praying? It's like someone digging a well, but giving up inches from the water. What many don't realize is that constant prayer weakens invisible resistance, opening space for the answer to arrive. It's like knocking on a door. The first knock may not open, but if you keep at it, eventually the door will give way. I know this may sound exhausting, but that's precisely where the test of faith lies. The enemy knows he can't hold out forever, so he tries to wear you down. He whispers thoughts like, "It's no use. Nothing's changing. You've already prayed, and God hasn't answered. You're wasting time." They're strategies to make you stop. But when you understand that persevering is part of victory, you resist. And believe me, the difference between those who achieve and those who don't is remaining steadfast. Let me tell you something simple. Have you ever noticed that people who achieved great spiritual victories weren't the most talented or the most intelligent, but the most persevering? They didn't give up. This is precisely what differentiates those who simply pray out of habit from those who pray until they see the impossible happen. Psalm 35 is an example of this because it's not a single sentence cry. It's an insistent, detailed prayer that demonstrates the determination not to accept defeat. Now, let me break the ice with you. Have you ever repeated the same thing over and over to someone until you were truly heard? Well, persevering prayer is similar, but with a huge difference. God isn't irritated by your insistence. On the contrary, He rejoices to see that you trust Him so much, that you won't give up until you receive an answer. Perseverance in prayer isn't a lack of faith, it's proof of faith. Those who truly believe don't give up. And here I want to propose a practical approach. Start praying Psalm 35 every day for a period of time without interruption. Read it aloud, declare it, and make each word a part of your life. Do this until you notice something starting to change. It could be within you, bringing peace. It could be in your circumstances, opening doors. It could be in your environment, releasing spiritual pressures. The important thing is not to stop, to cement this in your heart. Write the word in the comments. Persevere. It will be like a public commitment, an act of faith that marks the beginning of this discipline in your life. And I need to emphasize something. Persevering doesn't mean the fight will be easy. On the contrary, things often seem to get worse before they get better. This happens because when you begin to pray consistently, you irritate the enemy and he tries to react. But that's when you need to be even more steadfast, because it's a sign that something big is about to happen. Persevering prayer is like a hammer that breaks the rock. One blow alone does nothing, but several on the same spot destroy even what seemed impossible. Now let me leave you with a thought that will connect with the next point. If perseverance in prayer is already capable of opening doors and bringing victories, what happens when you understand that protection is not just a temporary result, but a divine promise that guarantees that, as you persevere, God Himself guards your life in every detail? One of the greatest truths you need to engrave on your heart is that God's protection isn't a pretty idea to comfort you, but a real promise available for your life. This changes everything, because a promise is something already guaranteed by one who has the authority to fulfill it. When the Bible says that the Lord is your shield, it's not poetry, it's a guarantee. When Psalm 35 shows God fighting on behalf of His people, it's not a metaphor, it's a reality that can be experienced by those who trust Him. The question is, do you truly believe this, or do you continue walking as if you were alone? Many people live on the defensive, constantly afraid of what might happen, looking around as if they were victims of conspiracies and attacks. Of course, there are persecutions. Of course, there are traps. But the difference is that those who understand the promise of divine protection don't live in panic. You may even feel the weight of the battles, but you know you're not alone. And here, I want you to think about something. How many times have you escaped situations that could have been disastrous? An accident avoided by seconds, a decision that seemed wrong, but ended up saving you from a bigger problem, a friendship that fell apart, and then you discovered was exactly what you needed. This is God's protection in action. And this is exactly what Psalm 35 teaches us, that God doesn't just stand by and watch, He gets involved in your cause. His protection is active, constant, and faithful. You don't need to beg for this protection, because it's already yours by promise. What you need is to learn to activate it, to live under it, declaring in prayer that you trust the Lord as your defender. When you do this, it's like placing a spiritual sign around your life saying, "Not here, this territory is owned." Now let's be honest, it's not always easy to believe this promise when things are tough. When you see problems knocking at your door, when the attacks seem bigger than you, your first reaction is doubt. Is God really protecting me? That's where faith comes in. The promise doesn't depend on how you feel, but on what God has already said. And when He promised to be your shield, He knew exactly the struggles you would face. Nothing takes God by surprise, and that's why you can rest, even in the midst of war. I know you might be hearing this and thinking, but my life doesn't feel protected, I've suffered enough. And I understand that pain. But it's important to realize that God's protection doesn't mean an absence of problems. It means victory in the end. You may go into battle, but you don't go alone. You may weather storms, but there's someone holding the boat together. And when we look back, we realize how many times it could have been worse, but it wasn't. Precisely because God's hand was there. And here I want you to make an act of faith with me. Write the word in the comments shield, declare that you believe this promise, that you accept living under this protection. This simple gesture may seem small, but it's how you align your faith with what God has already said. Now think with me. If God's protection is already guaranteed by promise, imagine what can happen when that protection begins to transform not only your spiritual environment, but also your inner self. Because true change isn't just feeling protected, it's having your life transformed by prayer. It's seeing concrete fruits emerging in your daily life. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in the next section. When you begin to truly understand the power of prayer, especially when it's aligned with God's word as in Psalm 35, something profound happens. Your life begins to be transformed. And I'm not just talking about external situations, like a door opening or an enemy neutralized, but an internal change, the kind that affects the way you think, feel, and react. Prayer isn't just a way to ask God for things. It's a tool for transformation, shaping your heart, strengthening your mind, and aligning your spirit. How many times have you entered prayer feeling defeated, afraid, or anxious, and left completely changed? It's as if a weight has been lifted from your shoulders. This happens because prayer doesn't just change circumstances, it changes you. It removes anguish and brings peace, exchanges fear for confidence, replaces doubt with faith. And this inner transformation is what keeps you steadfast, even when the storm hasn't yet passed. It's what keeps you from crumbling, when everything around you seems to be falling apart. And let me tell you something practical. Often the enemy doesn't even need to destroy your life materially. He just needs to destroy your inner self. If he can fill you with fear, anxiety, or insecurity, he'll paralyze you. That's why prayer is so important, because it strengthens your inner self so much that you become unshakable. Accusations may come, envy may come, persecution may come, but none of that will bring you down because you are strengthened within. Now, think with me. What's the point of winning on the outside and losing on the inside? I know people who have achieved wealth, status, and recognition, but who live unhappily, trapped in anxiety and insecurity. This shows that true transformation isn't found in external achievements, but in what happens within you when you pray. Psalm 35 isn't just about asking God to overthrow your enemies. It's about learning to live in peace, knowing that God is taking care of everything. This brings lightness. This brings rest. And here I want to challenge you to reflect. What would your life be like today if you learned to transform every fear into prayer, every accusation into a cry, every persecution into a reason to draw closer to God? It's this practice that generates real transformation. You become not just someone who survives struggles, but someone who grows in them. And it's precisely this growth that shows others that there's something different about you. I want you to do a symbolic act now. Write the word in the comments "change." This will mark the beginning of a new approach, where you will no longer use prayer only as an emergency aid, but as a daily practice of transformation. Each time you pray, you will emerge different, stronger, more confident, and more prepared. And you know what the best part of all this is? This inner transformation begins to reflect in your daily life. People will notice something different about you. They will feel the peace you carry. They will notice the strength that comes from within. And this opens doors, attracts opportunities, and creates a completely new environment around you. Because when you change on the inside, everything around you begins to change too. Now pay attention. If prayer has the power to transform your life internally and externally, imagine what happens when you understand that this transformation is just the beginning of something even greater. Because God not only changes you, He also wants you to experience His presence personally, as a living experience. And it's precisely this next level that we'll delve into in the next point. There comes a time when just listening isn't enough. You have to live it. It's no use just hearing about the power of Psalm 35 or just believing that others have already been transformed. You have to experience it firsthand. Prayer isn't a distant concept. It's not a theory in a book. It's practice. It's real experience. And that's the big difference between those who merely know the Bible and those who live it. One lives on information, the other lives on transformation. Perhaps you've often heard phrases like "God protects" or "God fights for you," but you've never felt them concretely. And I know how frustrating that can be, because it seems like these promises are real for others but not for you. But here's the thing, the promise is for everyone, but only those who embrace it can enjoy it. Psalm 35 wasn't written to be memorized, it was written to be lived. It's an invitation for you to rise up in prayer with authority and experience firsthand what happens when God enters your struggle. And here's a straightforward question. What's the point of listening to all this, understanding the theory, and continuing to live as if nothing had changed? What will transform your life is not the information, but the application. It's when you truly pray out loud, declaring each word as if it were a decree over your life, that things begin to change. It doesn't have to be a complicated prayer. It doesn't have to be with difficult words. It needs to be sincere, firm, and consistent. I'll reveal a personal detail here. Many people only discover the power of prayer when they reach their limit, when they've tried everything, and nothing has worked. And then, almost without strength, they bend their knees and cry out, and you know what happens? God answers. He always answers. But you don't have to wait until you've hit rock bottom to experience this. You can start today, right now, and live this experience consciously, knowing exactly what you're doing. And I know you might be thinking, but I don't know how to pray beautifully. I don't know how to say the right words. Let me reassure you, God isn't interested in rehearsed speeches. He looks at the sincerity of your heart. The most powerful prayer isn't the prettiest, it's the truest. When you open your mouth and say in faith, Lord, contend with those who contend with me, heaven moves. Not because you used pretty words, but because you used the right word. Now I want you to take a step of faith right here. Write the word in the comments experience. This will be your commitment that you will not just hear, but experience. Declare this publicly, because it is in the act of faith that the miracle begins. What you received here was a practical key to seeing invisible battles and discovering how to overcome them concretely through prayer. If this content has cleared your mind, brought peace to your heart, and given you the strength to face situations that previously seemed overwhelming, then it has already made a difference in your life. Now you can multiply this by reaching others. Like and subscribe to the channel so this message can reach further. And reach those who need this same transformation. Also write the word victory in the comments to seal this commitment in your life. And stay tuned, because the next video, which is already appearing on the screen, will take you even deeper, revealing spiritual secrets that will open your eyes in ways you've never experienced before.